Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. I did it. I think I did. I think I got it right. I'm always nervous, but I think I did it. How'd I do?
She did great, as always. But I'm a little biased anyway. She can do no wrong in my eyes.
Aw, you can't do any wrong in mine either. It's a pretty, I don't know, fluffy place around here when we're loving on each other.
Love should always be abounding. And speaking of love, please do subscribe both channels, EEARTS and also on Evolutionary. Have that little bell clicked. So hopefully you get notified of what's new and happening out there. So we do have a dark plasma explosion on the sun that may trigger a geomagnetic storm. It's actually very, very interesting what we see. Again, look at the size of the Earth compared to the sun, right? The sun is so big, so powerful, and yet our sun, our soul, is just a very, very atypical star when you compare it to all the stars that are out there. And of course, the stars, as we've talked about, they are relays for Source. They are relays for the God with the big G to give us updates. You know, we understand everything now in these times as programming, don't we? You know, computers get viruses, humans get viruses. Everything is about upgrades. The sun is bringing us upgrades. The sun is like a relay out there from Source, and it is updating our DNA. But we see here that this came from AR 3076, traveling faster than 1.3 million miles an hour. This plume tore through the sun's outer atmosphere, creating a coronal mass ejection, and the cosmic sideswipe could cause minor to moderate geomagnetic storm when it collides with the Earth's magnetosphere, potentially disrupting satellite and other communications and creating bright auroras visible at the lower latitudes than typical. And here you see this triple trouble. Is the Earth about to get hit with high-speed solar wind stream plus 2 coronal mass ejections at the same time? Yeah, because we have that coronal hole going on, and then the 2 eruptions. And, you know, I'm excited. I love this because I view this is Source helping us. This is God with the big G helping us, sending us what we need. It's sending us light. Light is knowledge. Knowledge is all about illuminating the things that have been darkened in this dark system. When we look over here at space weather, we can see we've had quite a bit of activity. You know, not ginormous, not X-class yet, but here, yes, this one pretty solid, pretty substantial, as well as some others. And, you know, August, we're in the middle of August. This is the time frame that we were looking at. Right now, there are the war games going on down there in Venezuela right now with Russia, China, and 30 other countries. When we look to Lascaux here, you could see some blasts shooting off. And we'll go check out what Enlil is doing. Yeah, Enlil. Oh, there's nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. We're just going to name that satellite Enlil. Yeah, Enlil's watching us from out there in space. Mm-hmm. And so we can see now this middle one is Earth. So you see that the energy is definitely on its way to impact us. And then we have stereo A and B on the sides of us. Those are satellites. Well, you know, it just makes me think of the White Knight and the Black Knight satellites, which we didn't put up there. We didn't put up there. They've been up there, and we've talked about this before too. Man, there's so much to share with you guys that haven't been quite caught up to date yet. There's just so much out there that's going on. And here you can see the aurora forecast. You know, the KP, if we get up to 6, we'll be at that moderate level. And just soak in those good rays, my friend. Let your DNA be awakened.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's doing, too. I mean, it's awakening us little by little by little, because if it were to happen all at once, that would be just too shocking on the human mind and the human body. So when we see these things coming in, it's always a question of, well, you know, yeah, they're upgrades, but what are they upgrading? So when I asked about what is being upgraded, you can look to your energy body becoming a little more dense. And what that's going to do is, as you do energy work, anything that is not doing well, that needs any kind of healing, that's going to heal much faster. So that's what we can look forward to. Most important thing we can do to help integrate these energies is sleep, rest, relax, yoga, meditation. All these things, very, very important.
Absolutely. And just, enjoy these times as best we could, because again, if we didn't have this dark system in place, we'd be having a blast. This would be the best of times. We'd be watching heaven manifesting on earth. And the reason why we see all the chaos is because they are doing their very best to stop that from happening. It's inevitable. However, they're going to try to trick as many people into jumping over to their side of the party, which is not a really good party. Let me just tell you that. You want to avoid that party. Yeah, you don't even want to risk crashing that party, so to speak. You just want to say, hey, we got a better party to go to.
Yeah, just know that those kids have cooties. You don't want them.
That's a good way of putting it. Those kids have cooties. Yeah, avoid the ouchies at all costs, guys. So here you see potential cannibal CME. Oh, scary, scary. Cannibal CME. Again, NOAA, NASA, all these governmental agencies, they always put a twist that's there to scare you. Oh, man. We have a 30% chance of an M-class flare and a 10% of an X-class today. It might take out the grid. Were we only so lucky in so many ways, because the grid is how they control us. We probably will have times, and I've felt too very strongly that we are entering that time period where we will see more and more localized power outages, getting to be kind of like just a normal state of affairs. But, at the same time, we're watching all these things happen on Earth where, as we're going to be talking about, they're talking about water rationing. They're talking about power rationing. And, of course, then we have everything going on naturally. And the natural stuff I'm not afraid of. Not afraid of at all. And, I'm not afraid of anything because, again, anything that they do, they can't really do anything to us in the bigger scheme of things. Anything that we don't allow. They can't affect the body, but they can affect, our core, the real us. And that's something to recognize. But again, the belief systems, the structures on this planet, what they've given us is a distortion. And it's all about giving them control. And so as we watch all this energy income, to me, it's exciting. Now, it does affect people in different ways. Some of you guys might feel like you just got a nap all the time. You might just need to lay down. We'll lay down and just soak in the energy and recognize that it is changing your DNA. It's giving you upgrades. We are, in effect, plugging in to the energy that's coming through the sun from source for us and our benefit. So you might as well take the download and enjoy it. Now, some of you might be at a place where you've purged and cleared a lot of your traumas. In that case, you might feel like just on top of the world.
Mm-hmm. Right. It can make you feel like $1,000,000. And ultimately, that's what we want to do. We always want to be clearing traumas, removing traumas, healing the body, just in a constant state of ever making your energy body and your physical body better, because that's when these energies really can penetrate and integrate in a much faster way.
And I just I keep getting the message as we're doing this to share this with you guys. So this is the Gayatri Mantra, and the Gayatri Mantra is the mother of all mantras. It's absolutely beautiful. There's a version of it made by, there's several versions that are beautiful out there. I think, again, Deva Premal, hers is so classic and beautiful. Ito and Joe do a wonderful version of this as well. This is calling on that energy from the sun. The sun in Hinduism is Savitur. It's one way of acknowledging the consciousness behind the sun, which there is one consciousness behind the sun, but there's also a plurality of consciousnesses as well. And the sun truly is the light of our world, and it's also the bringer of knowledge and of change, as well as sustenance. So when you do the Gayatri Mantra, you're tapping into that. It is said that the Gayatri Mantra can basically wipe away karma, past karmas. And so please do check this one out. It is a beautiful mantra. It's not the shortest, not the simplest. Takes a little work, but it's well worth it. And it is one of Cindy's favorites.
This really is my favorite mantra. I love this mantra. This gives you a much higher perspective. It really aligns you with higher self.
Absolutely. So AR-78 is growing in size, and this is just part of the change that's underway as we go through the cycle now. We are in what has been called a grand solar minimum time frame, and so the solar flares, now that we're from that low peak, we're starting to climb up as the sun goes through a roughly 11-year cycle. And then there are bigger cycles. As we know, there are the yugas, which are major cycles, cycles within cycles. Everything works in this manner. And AR-3078 is growing, crackling with activity. And it might be a game changer for many things. We do have Source on our side. You know, God with the big G is on our side. And that's something to really recognize. And of course, mankind has developed all these different dogmas. And really, in some ways, that might even be a little bit of an inaccuracy to say, because some of the dogmas don't really even come from mankind, but from other beings. So we see China's Yangtze River hits record low levels. We were talking about the Rhine record low levels. And, you know, it's just amazing to see such admissions of the fact that there is so much weather control and modification that's now being admitted from countries everywhere. And they're all like, you know, let's hit it now. You know, you got Bill Gates, who wants to block out the sun. Why? Because he wants to keep us in a dark age. That's the bottom line. He doesn't want you getting your updates from Source. These people want to take the credit for being representatives of a dark source and the total antithesis of the light. Everything is so distorted in these systems that we find ourselves in. Obviously, we've had historic heat. We also have tremendous cool downs. And I was looking at the 10-day and I said to Cindy so excitedly, we're going to be in the 80s. We're going to be in the 80s. We're going to be in the 80s. Yay. You know, for a high temperature, because we've been, 95 to 104 every day. So, you know, high temps of 88. Oh, man, that's wonderful. I don't need AC or anything personally. What we're going to see, though, probably is, again, when we do get cold, it's going to be like flipping that switch. And again, there is a lot going on to that effect as we look at the lower hemisphere. The Colorado River cuts are expected for Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico. We have a lot going on right now with this extreme drought and extreme flooding. When we've been talking about just basics, how it's costing so much. It's going to cost 2 months' wages for the increase that's coming in the UK in your utility bills. That's insanity. But that has a purpose, as we know. We know the food's going up and the clothing. You know, oh shoot, maybe we shouldn't have given away all that clothing to Goodwill, right? Because cotton prices are soaring. As you want to take a look at some of these. Well, you can see the charts. Look at these charts, right? I mean, prices are going through the roof. Texas is getting hammered as bad as any state out there with drought. But we did have some incredible flooding going on down in along the coast, up from Brownsville to Galveston. We're going to see probably more. There's a system out there right now in the Gulf that is probably not going to be a named storm, but you never know in these times with augmentation. I still remember Hurricane Harvey just coming up like this and then all of a sudden saying, whoop, I got to go over here. Actually it turned in around Houston. And BP Earthwatch did a great job of catching something looked like it was fired from Mexico. You could see it. It's like somebody launched a rocket of some sort, and it caused almost a magnetic pull that Harvey went straight west. And of course, obviously, just caused all sorts of havoc. So, again, your clothes, cotton. Look at this. This is in Amarillo. This is cotton. This is not already harvested. This is what was the crop. Not a good situation going on. Not a real reason for any of this that we couldn't avoid it. We could avoid it. There's just no will because it's not part of the bigger plan. Hailstorm moves through Weyburn area. Some crops wiped out. Some fields completely wiped out. 100% damage, all gone because of hail. This is up in Canada. This is just what we're seeing everywhere. 1,100 acre field of lentils wiped out. Again, food is gold right now, guys. Food is gold. If you're thinking, where are we going to be in the future? Well, right now we're going through that period of rapid increase in prices, but there still is stuff available. It might not be the brand that you're used to. It might not be ideal. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of stuff that when you go to the store, you'll see in some packages mold, or it looks like it's already wilting. Again, I'm thankful that there is stuff out there. I would heartily recommend having enough food to get you by. Remember when the government said, make sure you can live for 6 months without the grid and have, 6 months food supplies stored up? In my mind, 3 years is the minimum. In my mind, it's 3 years is the minimum. And that's just me, but again, this is a game of survivor in so many ways, because what is happening is everything is being exposed. The light's being shine on the darkness. They're moving at lightning speed, fast forwarding their agendas, of which there are numerous ones. And it's really a race that's ongoing right now. We could see, though, that finish line is still, it's out there, but we know it's attainable. But you're going to have to be prepared for it. And, as many people have been saying, save your seeds when it's organic. But at the same time, I've planted seeds from organic stuff, had amazing vines come out and no fruit. People worried about this when we first started seeing the GMO seeds coming out. People were saying this is going to affect our other crops. And then we were talking about those GMO mosquitoes, those little flies, those little nasty things that bite you, and how they only had to basically make sure they got about 60% or so of the population, and everything else will take care of itself. So we have to recognize that. We have to realize too, seeds and food, that's gold in the bank.
Mm-hmm. Very much. Very, very much. So do your best to save what you can, also with the understanding that, it might be a little bit of a risk, but it's better to have something than have nothing. So we really need to stabilize and prepare, because things are going to change. I mean, the powers that think that they're going to make sure that anything they're in control of changes under their guidance. So we have to make our own guidance system and just sort of walk away from that system little by little by little. But we at least need to get started.
So if I sound like I have a little bit more energy today, what this is a boost. It happens to me all the time when I'll do a fast. And so I did just a 24-hour fast because Cindy's going to join me for another fast. So I did a 24-hour fast where we ate one meal at between 3 and 4 o'clock. And then I didn't eat to the next day at about 4 to 5 o'clock. And then what we're going to do is tomorrow or the day after we're going to...
One of the two.
Okay, tomorrow or the day after we're going to do another. and then we're going to transition. So with that fast, it was a water fast, but black tea and herbal teas. I love elderberry and hibiscus is like one of my favorite combinations. And when you think about it too, I mean, that's just immune system boosting, and it's great at flushing out all sorts of free radicals, you know, because the vitamin C in the hibiscus is very, very high, and I love the flavor too. So that's basically what I'll have for that period. And then we're going to transition into a prolonged juice fast because we have a ton of we have a ton of watermelons that are ready to go, and we wouldn't be able to keep up eating them in time, and so we'll juice with them. And again, you could alternate your juice. I saw somebody when we're talking about fasting before bring up you don't want to combine fruits and veggies. I have, and I haven't suffered any ill effects from it. Everybody is unique, and if you're very, very sensitive, you know, have a insulin response and stuff, you might want to keep them separate. Again, you know, like one of my favorite juices that I will do that is more geared towards flushing things without giving you too much sugar, but for people that need a little bit of a sweetness to it, is juicing a whole head of organic celery and maybe a couple organic cucumbers. Take either a lemon or a lime, your preference, add that juice to it, and then maybe then take half of an organic apple just for a little bit of sweetness. Me personally, I don't need any sweetness. You know, I'm a tart guy.
He can do that. So, you know, that's something that he's been blessed with. But actually, there is something with the tartness and the vitamin C. So Mike's really lucky. His body craves things and it asks for things. So even if it tastes yucky, it tastes good. I'm not quite there, but I have started to notice that feeling where something that I taste my body needs, and starting to put those things together. The more we clear ourselves out, the more that happens.
Absolutely. So here we see record-breaking chills in Ecuador, South America. Southern Argentina suffered very cold July, controlled demolition in full swing. Yeah, that part is just absolutely so true. So these swings, and I was speaking about the swing that we're having in this area, in the Texarkana area, and it's a welcome one, you know, as it's going to drop back down to really what's more normal areas. But I do expect, again, I would not be the least bit surprised if we have an abnormally cold winter as well, or at least these periods, because, again, this is all orchestrated, what we see. It's an attack on the food system. It's an attack on the monetary system. This is that flash flooding we were talking about. Nothing to 2 feet in Corpus Christi. And, you know, this is exactly what we have. And when you have an area that's really, really dry, and all of a sudden you put a ton of water in there, the ground can't absorb it quick enough, and you end up with these catastrophic floods going on. And also, it has the conditions where it'll just wash everything right away. We were seeing massive flooding situation in Vegas, worst in 10 years. Over in Nigeria, this is another area that's really sensitive as far as being prone to famine. And, you know, these poor people over here are suffering tremendous flooding going on as well. 50 killed, many displaced in this. So we do send our prayers over that way as well. And here you have heavy rain flooding in Cornwall and Devon. UK is not prepared for the coming frequency of such floods. Extreme weather is becoming the new normal. Yeah, and control of that weather is becoming outright obvious to many, many people. And it's all being put right out there. See, you know, over here in Turkey, cloud seeding. All the governments around the world use cloud seeding to cause heavy rain and floods so they can use climate lockdowns. Yeah, you know, people are catching on to this. It's catching on mainstream. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. It is a very, very good thing. So we got to keep on keeping on and pushing our understanding out there so people can pick up what we're putting down and help us, you know, kind of steer the ship in another direction.
And I love this painting. This is Van Gogh's Starry Night, and some people might be like, oh, no, that gets me nauseous. Why do I like this painting? Well, this when I do the mantras, this is kind of what I start to see in my mind's eye. You could take away the little town on the bottom there. I see the swirling of the energies like this, because when I'm doing my mantras, then the guides come. Our guides do come to us. And whether you believe in guides or not, it doesn't matter. You do have guides. You just might not be able to hear them. And it's not really even necessarily your own fault. Fluoridated water. The Nazis knew this. That's why they fluoridated the water in the concentration camps. Blocks the pineal gland, makes people more docile, makes their thinking more foggy and cloudy. If your pineal gland is active, you can see things that other people can't see. You can perceive things. When I was 22, I was doing meditation every day, 3 different meditations, morning, 15 to 20 minutes before work, half an hour at lunch at work, and then at least an hour at night. And at night, sometimes, I would be meditating out there for an hour or 2. And it was about 4 months into my meditation where all of a sudden there was a block in my sacral chakra that I woke up in the middle of the night. I saw the moonlight coming in and I could see my sacral chakra. And then I knew I wasn't wasting my time. Up to that point in time, I didn't really feel the energy. I didn't really see the life force energy around me. I wasn't able to see other things around me, like from that point forward. After that blockage was cleared, I saw energy all the time. I could see the life force all around me all the time. I would be in these meetings and we had this stark white wall, and it would drive me crazy because I'd be watching people talk. Everybody would have to give out, this was a corporate situation. Everybody would do their own reports of what, was going on in their particular area. And so, you would just be zoning out, half bored, half ready to go to sleep. And I would just be watching everybody's auras. I would just be seeing their energies expand and then also contract. And I would also be getting the feeling, I think Joe's lying. I think he's not telling us the truth, because I could watch his energy change as he's saying one thing and then change when he's saying something else. This is the type of thing that's happening to people now all around the world. We are able to achieve in just weeks or months what would have taken years and decades, because of the energies coming in from our beloved Sun, from God with the big G, the real source of all creation. That is changing our DNA. It's reawakening our DNA. It's bringing us back to where we need to be and where we are when we're not in these dark Kali Yugas. And so we'll see this. These energy swirls are what I see every single day when I do my mantras, and my mind is switching on the third eye, and that's becoming my primary source of input in a visual sense and a sense of impression. And this is what I see when they come, these swirling energies. And there's also a feeling that comes with them. And that feeling is one of peace, and it's of love, and it's of acceptance, it's of compassion and understanding. So each one of these beings has its own unique frequencies. It's very, very different than, say, if the government is trying to do a psyop on you and trying to use their voice of God interface. The energy is not loving. The energy is not compassionate. The energy is not all embracing and all encompassing. It's cold, it's sterile, and it's completely different. This is why they don't want people having third eyes that are open and working. That is the most important thing to them. Because if humanity had full operational ability of their pineal glands, it's game over. Game over. There would not be a single politician that could lie to anybody. We would know.
We would definitely know. And another thing that they do to keep these abilities from coming online, and if they do, it can be problematic, is a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse, a lot of childhood trauma goes on. So if you have these traumas and you start to come online, this can cause problems, because these things, if you're not ready to deal with them completely and you're not equipped to cope with them completely, they can come front and center and be standing right in front of you saying, deal with me, deal with me, deal with me. So the most important thing we can do right now to bring these energies into us is look at those traumas and learn to heal them. Learn to give yourself that compassion, that love, that energy, that time that it takes to make you grounded and whole.
Yes, the system, modern science, if you were to ask 100 scientists, tell us about consciousness, you would get a variety of different answers describing consciousness. If you look in books, though, most of them are going to postulate that our consciousness is the result of chemical interactions from the brain, chemical, electrical signals, and that it's the physical that is creating the consciousness. And again, that's the science, and that science is completely erroneous. It's actually the exact opposite. Max Planck is one of the founding fathers of modern quantum physics, and one of the most brilliant people to walk the planet in the last couple of thousand years. And he says, I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness, not the opposite way around. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as existing, postulates consciousness. And this has been known in the East for forever, and it's been also known and hidden in the Western mystery traditions. When we look into traditions such as the Kabbalah, for instance, Gnosticism, Hermeticism, these are the quote-unquote sacred hidden sciences that had to be hidden, because otherwise, you could end up being boiled alive, burnt at the stake, etc., etc. Now, when we look to the Sanatana Dharma, when we look to Buddhism, Jainism, Hinduism, Sikhism, again, all these, Taoism, they understand that ultimately there's consciousness, and everything else is the result of consciousness. And it's not even hidden. And when we read the Bhagavad Gita, here's what Einstein said. When I read the Bhagavad Gita, the only question left is how God created the universe. Everything else seems to be superfluous. And because it does talk about consciousness, and it's not about necessarily who begat who, and this led to that, and this sin and that, and no, it's really what they're talking about is not even who are we, but what are we really? What are we really at the core? And so when we look at some of the verses, as a man leaves an old garment and puts on one that is new, the spirit leaves the mortal body and puts on one that is new. Weapons cannot hurt the spirit, and fire can never burn him. Untouched is he by drenching waters, untouched is he by parching winds. Beyond the power of the sword and fire, beyond the power of waters and winds, the spirit is everlasting, omnipresent, never changing, never moving, ever one. And again, these individual incarnations that we have right here are unique experiences. I really think, again, and I don't want to belittle our existence by saying it's just a game, but I think we could really take that analogy when we look at the technology today and we have the ability to put on a headset, and all of a sudden we find ourselves in a completely different reality, and you could reach out and, hey, there's something coming at you, hey, push it out of the way, hey, jump out of the way. Again, we could perceive that in many ways we are in this virtual reality, but we're not really at danger at the core. Because again, we are consciousness. We're not this body, and it's understanding that. And I wanted to thank my beloved little angel to my right here for just like sharing with me some things that I had never really perceived before as of last night. Like I've shared with you guys too, that I had a brother, and we were 11 years apart. And so he was diagnosed with a brain tumor at 5. My mom followed Western medicine totally. She just trusted. She trusted in the system. And so they went through the system. He had an operation. They didn't get all of it, and it came back. And it eventually claimed his life at 16. I remember standing in the kitchen, right by the kitchen chairs. I remember the table and the chairs. They were the ugliest thing you've ever seen. As a 5-year-old, and I remember staring at the wall. Everybody was putting their coats on the kitchen table and consoling my mom and my dad. And then I was like in back of my body and above it, and I just heard a voice saying, you're not the body. You're not the body. And I never realized it was my brother that was saying that to me. And because he was out of his body, and so Cindy was able to give me that perspective, and then it all clicked. I just took it as a guide, any guide, but it really was my brother, because he was out of the body, and he was just sharing with me, don't worry, I'm still here, and you're not the body either, so there's nothing to fear.
Mm-hmm. It's really important to have these understandings, because it takes you out of that human consciousness space where we believe our belief systems can kind of anchor us in. So when we have these understandings and these expanding moments, it really should be embraced, because it's the world that we live in, and it's our human need and desire to have this understanding that there is a beginning and that there is an end. It's like humans seem to have to always need that, like, how did everything start? But when we're dealing with cosmic consciousness on this level, it always has been and it always will be. And because of our human minds, it's like, no, that doesn't make sense to us. There must be a beginning. But there is not. So this is just something we simply cannot perceive. But little by little by little, as we grow, as we expand, we are getting that understanding through the light of the sun, which brings us very, very important information about our being.
So I remember getting this book so many years ago. It was around when I was about 11 or 12. As I was doing a lot of research at that point in time, I had just read the Bible from cover to cover, and it didn't satisfy. There was a lot more that I was hungry for. And I remember reading a book on self-realization. I can still remember what it looked like. And I just, it's something that we might not get when we hear self-realization being the goal, the supreme goal of the Sanatana Dharma, which basically can be translated as many things, the eternal way, the eternal path, the eternal truth. When you say self-realization, a lot of people are probably like, what do you mean self-realization? But that is it in a nutshell. It's understanding the divine that is within us, the eternal nature of us and our consciousness. It's the knowing which can't come about by left brain learning. It's different than left brain learning. Again, that's the knowing as in gnosis with a G, that is experiential. You experience the fact that you are not your body. Your consciousness has shifted to a perspective where you not only think it, but you know it. And this is something that, again, you could read every work of literature that there is and never experienced that. Or you might not have to read hardly anything at all, and you might experience it, at the drop of a hat at the right time. And it could be just simply because you've done this work in past lives. When we see each dot, each little speck is an entire galaxy. Each galaxy contains as many as 1 trillion stars. Every single one of them is consciousness. Every single little dot out there could be trillions of individuated consciousnesses in the sea of the one universal consciousness. When we see these shapes, these are more than concepts. This is how the universe is created. It's through sacred geometry and a fractal system. Everything is fractal. Everything is fractal. As above, so below. As within, so without. And here, again, when we look at the flower of life and these patterns, look at cellular mitosis and how cells divide. The 1 becomes 2, the 2 becomes 4, and so on, and so on, and so on. And yet there's still 1. This is the reality. This is the pattern of the Shri yantra. Shri having to do with the goddess, the divine feminine energy. And, there are many mandalas out there, many mandalas expressing the way the universe expresses itself through creating these different patterns.
And they're, it's very, very beautiful once you start to understand these things and they start to make sense. You keep having these aha moments, which are really never ending, once you get into this and you have a clearer knowing, you have a clearer understanding. It really expands your consciousness to understand things that maybe before just were really blocked. So when we're getting these this information inside of us and we're actually just observing at it, we're just looking at it, this is expanding our consciousness. So these patterns are forever and they go on and on and on, and as we look at them, they repattern our minds so that our minds can expand further out and further out.
It's beautiful. So in this, you can see the lotus. And again, the lotus is associated with our chakras. The chakras are gates to different densities. I'll still remember this one person that said, I'm terrified of having my chakras open. It's terrifying to have your chakras closed because when your chakras are closed, you're limited. It's entrapment. It's not expansion. You want your chakras open so that you're free to fly. And again, we see these patterns when we look at certain chakras. They look very much like this. And these are wheels within wheels. When we think about Ezekiel and him seeing that the wheels within wheels that we might take for a mechanical UFO, well, you might also think perhaps he was seeing a Merkaba. Perhaps he was seeing, the light body, because, that's the real us. When we, again, look up into the sky and we see all these stars, these are beings. Focus on one star. Focus on a star. Send out a thought to it. Say hi. Bet you it twinkles back.
Mm-hmm. And they will. If you can get in a place where there's not much light pollution, that's really gonna help. And you send that information out, and you definitely do receive. And I think another thing that's really interesting and important to understand about our chakras is that they are tied to different planets. So depending on that planet position, that can move your behavior. It can give you certain instincts to do things a certain way, based on that planet's personality and how it behaves in that particular degree.
When you look to science will say, well, nebula is just gas. But then when we look to, so not to expand on this and make this too long, but again, we could go on. We could just turn this into a 12-hour video easily, just by going off and explaining every single little different tangent that we're on. But when you look to the pentagram, the 5-pointed star, right? 4 arms, and then the point on the top. The 4 arms represent the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. The point on the top is representing what we might take as spirit or as ether. And everything really manifests top down. Top down, not bottom up. And this is all part of that, how the universe works. And again, they don't want you understanding all these things. Everything we see out there is consciousness. And the entire universe at the same time is available to us without even physically going out there to it. Because once your light body is fully activated, your Merkaba is activated, you could go anywhere with just a thought. Anywhere. Just think about this. This is one huge ocean of consciousness. And so, if you want to delve in and learn more, these are the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and they are to be sipped and savored, so to speak. Allow yourself time for these, because this is not reading a history again of who begat who and historical battles. This is going into consciousness itself. And so, it's good to just take time to meditate on them. The first Yoga Sutra literally translates as, now concentration is explained. The second, yoga, which is union with the divine, is restraining the mind stuff, the chitta, from taking various forms, vrittis. And that's something that you could just sit and maybe meditate on for a very long time. And again, it's restraining the mind, the monkey mind, because the monkey mind's always thinking about things. What's for dinner tonight? Oh no, I got to meet with my boss tomorrow. Oh boy, the IRS is due. There's always these things going on in our mind, these thoughts that most people cannot control. And that's understandable, for our society, the conditioning. We're always so busy for a purpose. They want you so busy, working so much, that you never have time to dwell on things and realize that the entirety of the system is all just a mental entrapment. It's all about getting you to believe you are so much less than what you really are. Because the entire universe, the entire multiverse is available to us if we take the time to develop mental discipline and to really go in here. So again, yoga is all about stilling the chatter. And there's many techniques for this. There's many techniques. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. Again, this is something that should be pondered for a very, very long period of time. But maybe just take one little step at a time and think about it. Easier in some ways is the Tao Te Ching, and you could do that in the same thing. Just read one verse of the Tao a day, or even one a week, and just let it sit in. So this is nice in so many ways to explain consciousness as a sea, right? At that time, the time of concentration, the seer rests in his own unmodified state. Okay, so for many, that's probably going totally overhead. As soon as the waves have stopped and the lake has become quiet, then we see the ground below the lake. So with the mind, when it is calm, we see what our own nature is. We do not mix ourselves, but remain our own selves. This is, again, the wisdom that's out there and available. It's not easy. Yeah, this is more like delving into quantum physics instead of, going into kindergarten or first grade and just simply, putting blocks together and saying, okay, now how many blocks do you have? Well, let me see. 1, 2, 3. No, this is much more like trying to understand quantum physics or something that's much, much deeper, and it takes time. But just this is what the type of things we need to ponder. When the waves are really, really rough, you can't see the bottom of the lake. When the mind is full of all sorts of thoughts and constructs, we can't see what lies beneath the surface. So it takes time, and it takes stillness, and it's not an easy venture. And this is also why they have created this entire system to make it so we don't have the time or the patience to go within to this level. They cultivate the TikTok mentality. I only have time for 3-minute videos. I can't go any farther than 3 minutes. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to understand reality with just 3 minutes at a time.
And, look at the system, how they have it. It's really important that they keep everything so chaotic. So when you're looking at their news and you're looking at different things, I mean, there's just all these paper tigers everywhere. And that's really important to keep the human mind anchored in a certain position, because if you're anchored in fear, it's really easy to steer you. It's like putting a halter on a horse or a bull, and now you have control of that creature. So the chaos that they show us every day, that's the halter. That's what they put on us. We are now easily controlled. But if we start practices like this is what can really help us take that control back and bring the mind to a place where it's manageable and we're not always in fear. So it does take time, but it's really important, especially for the times we're in, because still waters run really, really deep. Those emotions will run deep, and we need to understand them so that we're not just letting them whip around all over the place.
Think of it in terms of being in a game. Now, if you're a car and you're only seeing yourself as a car, or in this case, if you're only seeing the gun and you're not even seeing the hand, you might think that you are a gun. You might think that you are a car, but you're not. And I wonder if this analogy makes any sense to anybody out there, because when our perception is that we are the operating vehicle, the system of operation, or the tool, so to speak, but we're not the tool. And again, the body is just a tool. It's just an operating system. It's just a vehicle. So, we could get confused, and that's what it is. We're not that. We are the seer. We are the watcher, so to speak. So I hope this maybe stirred a little something in the deep recesses of some minds out there. We want to thank you guys for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you guys. Do check out Medicinal Foods. There's a link on every video. Use coupon code EEA. It does give you a discount. And also check out Evolutionaryenergyarts.com, as this will give you more information about us and the other things that we do when we're not making videos. May you guys be blessed by the true creator of this universe and the source of all things. Much love and namaste.
Namaste.